Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the first episode of the Controlled Interest podcast, where we talk about gaming and everything going on in the industry. I'm Jared, joined with Jordan.
What's up, guys?
And Dominic.
Hey, what's going on?
And we're just here to talk about, the news and then some topics that we bring to the table. So I'm going to be pulling up the news stories here, guys. And since both of you guys are big PlayStation guys, over on the PlayStation blog, Justin Mason-Gill wrote about the February's top downloads. So we're going to play a little game here and have you guys try to guess what you think. We'll do the top 5 for PS4 and the top 3 for PS3. So we'll get the PS3 ones out of the way. So Jordan, you first. What do you think were the top 3 most downloaded games on the PS3 for the month of February?
At this point, it's kind of just a crapshoot. Like Red Dead Redemption could pop up or something, but I think it's a strong pick if I go with like a sports game or Call of Duty. So since they only had multiplayer only on Call of Duty, I'm gonna say FIFA 16.
Okay, and what about you? Dom, you can either guess all 3 games or you can go Jordan's round and pick what you think is the top game. Oh, you guys are going to be surprised. I don't think you guys will get it, but we'll see.
Well, I was going to say Call of Duty until you said that, but I'll stick with Call of Duty. Black Ops 3, is it now?
So you're going to go with Call of Duty as well? Unfortunately, that was the number 6 selling game on the PS3. The top 3 selling games in descending order are at number 3, Army of Two, The Devil's Cartel, which is really interesting. Number 2, Minecraft, which is an easy go-to because Minecraft is always selling to this day.
Should have thought of that.
And number 1, Need for Speed Most Wanted. So yeah, it is kind of weird to kind of guess those games because it's a dying system in the sense of people are moving over to the new gen, and so going into the PS4 games, we'll do the top 5. Hopefully, you guys will be able to get them. You don't have to pick the exact order, but I just want your guesses of what's going to be in that top 5. So this time we'll start off with you, Dom. Go ahead. What do you think?
I'm going to say Far Cry Primal. That's out now, I believe. It's got to be at least in the 5. After that, probably still Call of Duty. I could see staying in the top 5. I'll say Minecraft as well. Actually, I'm going to throw in Battlefront 2 because they recently announced a couple DLC and new heroes and stuff they're going to do later on. So I think that might help research that a little bit. So I'm at 4 now. What else? Man, what else is going on? Yeah, I'm at a loss. We'll just throw out Need for Speed too.
Okay, and Jordan, what do you think?
Let's see. I'm definitely going to go with Far Cry Primal since it came out at the tail end of the month. I'll say Need for Speed as well. Throw a sports game in there, so I'll say FIFA 16 again. Black Ops 3, and just for good measure, The Witness.
Okay, so Primal's definitely in the top 5, and the other 4, neither of you guys guessed. So we'll start in descending order. At number 5, Street Fighter 5.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Number 4 is Naruto Shippuden Ultimate yada yada yada.
Naturally.
Number 3, Rocket League still, which is really impressive. That game is a super hit. Primal came in at 2, so both of you guys made the safe pick there. Number 1, Firewatch.
Huh.
Yeah,
wow.
Which I figured is sold, but I didn't think it was the top-selling game, especially to outsell Far Cry Primal. Though Far Cry Primal came out towards the tail end of the month, still, it's impressive, really, to see Firewatch up there as the number 1 top-selling game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's really good for Camp Santo and those guys. Okay, so the next story is just a quick hitter here. For all of you who are interested in Pokemon Go, with the recent announcement of Pokemon Sun and Moon, people are still wondering where Pokemon Go is. The announcement was going to be released this year. And signups for Pokemon Go's field tests are now live, according to Ben Reeves over at GameFormer.com. So if you do live in Japan and you're listening to this, congratulations, it made it to you. And so if you go to this website, if you go to Game Informer, go to the news, and you go to the article, you will see that you can sign up there and follow the link. All the descriptions for all the news stories we talk about are going to be in the link on our YouTube videos, so definitely check that out. Just a quick Pokemon story there. Going on to the big news here, so get ready. Epic Games founder and Microsoft butt heads over the PC storefront policy. So I'm going to go into this story real quick, let you guys know. Epic Games founder Tim Sweeney recently wrote an editorial basically speaking out against Microsoft's Universal Windows platform. In short, he is not a fan of it because it kind of closes off the market, and it makes it for other people to kind of it's going to be hard for them to get in. It's kind of like the Android platform in a sense, where if Google doesn't put it in front of your face, it's going to be hard for you to get to it. And he basically says in a quote, "My criticism is limited to Microsoft structuring its operating system to advantage its own store while unfairly disadvantaging competing app stores." So he has some theories about how it's going to be, a big play for Microsoft. What do you guys think about this? Are his concerns justified?
I'm not sure. It seems like, correct me if I'm wrong here, it almost seems like he's worried about the fact that Windows 10 is on Xbox One. Is that correct?
It's basically, so moving forward, the Universal Windows platform is going to be the thing that kind of melds those two together,
Yeah.
And he's worried that it's going to kind of shut out everything else and try to make the PC, at least the Windows PCs, a closed-off ecosystem,
So, if you... like, Quantum Break's coming out on PC. Are you going to be able to purchase that through Steam?
I'm not sure. I think you had to purchase it through the Windows Store. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So that's what we're getting at here. Yeah, I gotta agree. I don't understand these, especially on PC. These stores that pop up, like, that are just against Steam, or against being part of Steam, like how EA has Origin. And there's other companies, publishers that have their own kind of website or game store to download from, and obviously this Windows one. I like the more agnostic approach with either going just straight with Steam, or I think good old games. You just download the game.
Yeah.
So I like that too, where it's like then you don't have to have Steam running in the background, which is obviously gonna hurt you from running higher end graphics. So it's like, yeah, just let us download the game if we're playing on PC,
Right. Dom, what do you think about this? Do you think he's justified in his concerns whether or not, Microsoft is trying to close off the PC market to themselves?
I mean, I guess it's complicated. So, I mean, first of all, I can't see the Windows Store being very successful long term for straight PC games, right? I mean, they tried to do this sort of thing before with Xbox Live on Windows. I can't remember what the exact title they used for it, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's still available on a PC. I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to go through a different store, but I can't see Microsoft ever completely, getting it to the point where they're shutting down Steam and Origin, where no one uses those anymore, and they only use.
But what if it's cross-platform, cross-buy then?
I mean, that would be ideal, obviously, but I mean, I guess right now I don't see it as a real concern, but maybe he's thinking a little longer term than I am. But I guess, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Jared, you bring up a good point. I think this platform that they're building right now is definitely a play to eventually build up to some kind of cross-buy system, because that is a big advantage that Sony has over them, where there's certain games I can buy for PS4 for like $20, and then I get a copy on PS3 and on Vita to take on the go. So it's like, it'd be really great if you could do the same with Quantum Break on PC and Xbox,
Yeah, and it also allows you to play the game maybe a different time at higher settings. Also,
yeah.
It depends on how Windows is going to integrate the modding community as well. That's also a big play,
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I think them having their own store could only hurt mods, Yeah. It's only going to make it more difficult to have your mod work on a certain game and be able to install it and do all those sorts of things, so.
And maybe what if they also are uncomfortable with the way Steam handled their platform being hacked? But then again, Steam can go to them and say, well, consoles aren't harm-free either. Happens to you guys as well,
Yeah, I don't know that that's it. I think they're just trying to get theirs, They're trying to corner their own spot on the PC platform.
So we heard, you guys heard our concerns with his concerns, but the Xbox exec actually came out recently, right after this story had been published, and giving credit where credit is due. That story was from Kyle Hilliard over at Game Informer as well. He wrote up that piece. Link will be in the description. But right after that was posted over on GameSpot.com, Eddie McCook, I believe, I'm probably saying that wrong. He wrote an article talking about how the Xbox exec responded to these monopoly concerns, and he basically came out and said Windows has always been an open ecosystem welcoming the contributions of hardware and software partners and will always continue to be, which he does have a point. Windows has tried to work with as many people as they can, and they've tried to make their platform open. So just because they're trying to make this new universal Windows platform, all of a sudden people think that they're going to change their stance on this kind of stuff. So he does have a point, but then again, it is coming from the Xbox exec who works with Microsoft, so he's going to try to make them in the best light they can. So what do you guys think about the Xbox exec, replying to these monopoly concerns? Do you think he's being really biased? Do you think he has a point with this quote? What do you guys think?
If I had to pick a side here, I'd probably say I'd go with the Epic Games guy, just because
Sweeney? Yep.
Yeah, I think it's worth being skeptical, if, like I said, they are trying to corner their part of the PC platform. Why aren't they just, making a huge partnership with Steam, getting something going with Valve to where it's Steam finally is the platform on PC gaming,
Yeah, that would be huge for Xbox too, because if Universal Windows platform is for both the console and the PC, right, and they work congruently with one another, if they're able to get Steam on their back and you can play your Steam games on your home console, that would be huge for Microsoft. That would be a crazy win,
It would be a win, but they would lose money on it. So
yeah, Dom?
Yeah, so I wonder if that would be great for both parties, but if looking back now, Valve trying to penetrate the console market with the Steam machines too, kind of tells me they're not really interested in necessarily that kind of partnership with Microsoft.
Sure.
But albeit the Steam machines obviously kind of hit a brick wall, but
yeah,
still.
Yeah, so I think there's really Epic's founder Tim Sweeney actually has a really strong relationship with Microsoft. Obviously, Epic Games published a lot of exclusive content for Microsoft, So with him having concerns, that's, I think, the problem here that people have is, if this guy was so closely tied with Microsoft and he has concerns, people are kind of worried about that. But I think we're just going to have to see where things go from here. I think it's way too early to see where this thing's going to be implemented and how it's going to be implemented. It's right to have concerns, but, you can't really count the chickens before they're hatched kind of approach. So going into our last news story here, there was an article posted over at Kotaku.com by Jason Schreier, and it basically shows this advertisement for the division where there's two quotes, one from GameZone, a gaming website, and one from IGN. And the IGN one states, best new franchise, and the GameZone one states, blows Destiny out of the water. Now, people are having issues with this because these aren't necessarily going towards the release of the division. These quotes have been taken out of context, and, Ubisoft isn't the first company to do this, and they know that this is a game that's going to be competing directly heads-on with Destiny for years to come. And so the reason the quotes are being, targeted for false advertisement is that the best new franchise quote from IGN was taken from their E3 show, where they stated it was the best new franchise they saw at E3. So people feel as if them saying that this is the best new franchise now that it's releasing is kind of going against that, and people need to know where that quote was from. The other one is actually the correct quote, and it was relatively, a little while ago, but it was shortened. The actual quote says, the division blows Destiny out of the water with 6.4 million beta users. So, that can be taken out of context as well, because it's talking about the beta numbers. That's all it's talking about. Because they shortened it, though, the quote means something entirely different. It's meaning that it's a better game, So people are worried about that. And the Game Zone people actually said that next time they're actually going to make sure that when they give permission to somebody to use their quotes, that they're going to know exactly how they're used and where they're used. So do you guys think this is a case of false advertisement, or do you think this is just another company that's doing what everyone else does? What do you think, Dom?
So I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with the way they take it out of context, but given what you said that that the party that actually made the comment, it was okay. So in this case, IGN was ultimately gave the okay for them to,
And Game Zone.
Exactly, yeah. So both those parties gave the okay for their quotes to be kind of cut off and shortened to make it sound a little different than it was really intended. It's still, I mean, we could get into a real deep discussion about the ethics and morality of certain marketing and advertising techniques, but it still kind of rubs me the wrong way hearing about it, like when you hear what it was really meant to mean. So, and it kind of makes me think, like, now going forward, every time I hear something like that, I'm going to start to question, yeah, but that they're saying this about this game, but let's see what the full quote was, that sort of thing. But from a morality standpoint, I mean, yeah, again, it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. So
what do you think, Jordan?
Going off of that, before we get into that, Jordan, I want you to kind of give your impressions as to, do you think that people should make sure to have their hate or their anger towards the right person? Because a lot of people are going to throw this at the people who developed the Division, but this could be a marketing decision. They could have no say in this.
True. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think the developers are the ones that made this call, so I definitely don't throw the blame at them. There's blame to be had here, and I definitely think it's unethical, and I'm totally not okay with it. At the same time, they're really kind of just playing with loopholes and not necessarily doing anything wrong. This reminds me last year when Tom Hardy did the movie Legend, where he played the two twin brother gangsters from Britain. He, the marketing group for the film did a picture where, of course you can find it online, but it's basically both Tom Hardys standing in front of kind of like a poster background where it has all these 4-star reviews, and then in between their two heads is the review from The Guardian, and it's a 2-star review, but it looks like their heads are covering up the other stars.
Wow.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It looks like all the other 4-star reviews, but they're just in front of it. And really it's a 2-star review from The Guardian. So this reminds me, it's the same exact thing, just kind of playing those loopholes. They're really not misquoting them or changing the quote. They're just cutting off the end. Or, with Legend, they're really just, putting it in a convenient place to make your mind think that. So I get it from both ends. I think that, the marketers are trying to be sly, and they're trying to get as many people into this game as possible, but I really think there's other ways to go about it. And I think that, in the last 10 years, we've seen so much vitriol towards especially EA and Activision and Ubisoft for the type of practices that they bring to the table, where, EA gets called one of the worst corporations in the world, and Activision does some weird stuff with Call of Duty. I can't remember last year. Was it Call of Duty that had the fake Twitter account that was like reporting fake terrorist attacks on Twitter?
I think so. I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure if it was Call of Duty, but I do know the event that you're talking about. I'm pretty sure it was Call of Duty, though. Activision has been known to do some interesting things. I'll just put it at that,
But they just you're a forward-facing company, and you got to look at how that may seem to a general audience, especially people who aren't gamers and don't even know what your game is. It's like, oh, that's what video games are now? They're tweeting out fake terrorist attacks for a shooter game? It makes it look even worse than the whole, violent video games make you violent thing. It's almost spreading farther at that point.
What I think it is that I think it's an old school approach to a new industry. I think they're taking the marketing that they've had in movies and radio and everything, where you kind of take what you can, cut it up the way you want people to see it, and then you push it out there, And I think it's kind of like these people are being brought up as marketers and stuff, and they see the old world way of how things work, and they probably don't have the room to try new things. They're probably being told by somebody higher up, this is what works. This has worked. We're going to do it this way. We don't care if it's quote-unquote unethical or the morality there is in question, or we're tricking people. It works, and when something works, we get paid, and that's what we care about,
And see, nobody is as interactive with their medium as gamers are. Like, nobody is, even film buffs or cinephiles aren't like, are not as engaged, especially with the marketing of films, as gamers are. Or people who are, audiophiles and super into music are not like super engaged with the marketing of music the way gamers are.
Well,
and so
I think that has to do with
that's a big point,
Yeah, I think that has to do with the fact, though, that we know we're going to commit so much time to this that we want to do everything we can to make sure this is an appropriate, purchase. It's not that the expense is crazy, it's that the time we're going to put into this game is crazy. Yes. We know we're going to spend this time that we can be doing something else, and we want to know that we're getting into something that's worth it, because this is a medium that's way different than any other medium, Yeah. I've even my favorite movie, I don't think I've put the hours I've put into some of my favorite games. Not even close, Yeah. I think we just need to see as the years go, once, the younger generation starts getting in these positions of power, that things start changing towards, the industry starts changing towards the way we outlook on things. And, we just need to change the way we approach things, from marketing, from everything, really. It's so old school now that we kind of gotta have a new outlook on it. Yeah, they work, but it doesn't mean something else won't work just as well. Sure. Going off of that really dark discussion, I'm going to bring up my first topic here. It's going to be, do you guys think that the Division is going to live up to the hype? It comes out the day you're listening to this, Tuesday, March 8th. And, it's going to be the direct competitor to Destiny. It's essentially fighting for that player share, right? It's an open world game where it's mission based and it's an RPG. But it's set in more so current day post-apocalyptic as opposed to future sci-fi, right? Do you think this game will succeed? Before we get into that, I just want to say that I played the alpha and the beta, so I have a little bit of experience with it. I'm not too sure if you guys have, but once we get into our thoughts on that, we'll figure out if you guys have played it or what your guys' thoughts on it are. So shooting to you first, Dom, what do you think? Will the Division live up to the hype that Ubisoft is putting on this game?
So I think it definitely has the potential to. So I missed both the alpha and the beta, so I have no hands-on experience at all. I mean, I've watched a couple of Let's Plays of the beta and things like that, but yeah, I think it looks really interesting. Personally, it's not for me. I'm not big into the multiplayer games nowadays, but I could imagine, with a group of friends, this could be a big time sink for a lot of people, which is exactly, like you said, the kind of crowd that was into Destiny. So, and I'm sure that they're looking at what Destiny did right and wrong, and learning from that and trying not to make the same mistakes, kind of a lack of content or a lack of story. So I'm sure they'll try to, course correct based on what Destiny did. And I think this has huge potential to be pretty big. Again, no hands-on experience for me myself, but I think it looks very interesting.
Jordan, what do you think?
So I got into the alpha last winter, but I missed it because that's when I got Bloodborne. And then I played the beta earlier in February for just a couple hours. So I like the game. It's a solid third-person shooter, and that's really like the basis that it needs, you know, to even start competing with Destiny. So it's got that going for it. It's got the loot game and the online multiplayer and connectivity type of thing going. And I think it's going to sell millions of copies, and it's going to have a following, and I think people are going to still be playing it later on this year, like around Game of the Year talks. I don't think it's going to be an Evolve situation. But, what we were talking about earlier with the marketing and little things like that can really turn the tide to whether it's like we saw with Destiny, whether it was a 7.0 or a 9.0, there were very small little things that made that difference. So I hope the best for the Division, because I want more of these like hybrid MMOs that you don't really have to sink 100 hours in just to get good at.
Yeah. And
I do like the setting a lot. The post-apocalyptic Manhattan and Christmas around Black Friday. But it's definitely like a wait-and-see approach for me. I'm not going to be getting it day one. Mainly just because I'm not like a huge multiplayer gamer, and so I'd probably wait until it was like $30 or so. But yeah, I think it's got, like I said, it has that basis of the strong third-person shooting aspect and the loot game. So there's definitely potential there.
I think, the big concern is longevity, right? Because this is a game that's going to be a platform as opposed to like a single game release. It's going to be supported. That was the big thing with Destiny, is that it was a release and then it was supported with substantial quote unquote DLC afterwards. Personally, I sunk way too many hours into Destiny, more than I want to admit. But you'd think if you put that much time into a game, you would appreciate it. But looking back on it, I really don't appreciate the time I spent with Destiny. it's kind of like, when you see a book and you read the cover and the cover's really good, and you read, maybe the prologue and the prologue's good, but as you start to read the actual book, you realize that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
For me, it seemed like there was so much in this world, but nothing was there. It was just the same thing over and over again, and some people love that. That's why they compare it to an MMO. I don't like MMOs. I don't like grinding the same thing over and over again. That's not the type of gamer I am. To the people who love that, great. That's definitely your thing. But to me, it that's definitely not my thing. And the impression I got from Destiny, the Division rather, is that it's in the same basis of Destiny, but I believe that there's a lot more content there. From the alpha and the beta that I both played, it seems like there's a lot more content there. There's going to be some retracing of footsteps, but because of the environment, it takes place in one city and there's so many buildings. Who's to say that later on down the line with updates, they don't unlock certain buildings that you couldn't access before? Because that's what it felt like. When you play a game and there's areas you can obviously access and there's areas you can't, where it's like either the color isn't there or the detail on that certain object isn't there.
Yeah.
For this whole entire game, almost every door you go to is the same. It's hard to tell which doors are accessible besides getting the button prompt. So it feels like maybe they are shells right now, certain areas, but they can actually invest more content into that area. So even though you're tracking down the quest lines through the same, intersection of streets, there's going to be a lot of content there because you can take things a different way. There's certain apartments that open up, there's certain things going on. It all depends on how Ubisoft handles the situation. I think the longevity is a big concern here. Also, it seems like that's what they're buying for. They're not doing Assassin's Creed this year because they want to focus on Assassin's Creed, but I think also as a part of that, they want to focus on the Division. They want to make sure Assassin's Creed gets back to being the type of game people want to play, but they want to put all of their eggs into this basket, because if they get the Division to hit, you see the money that Destiny's pulling in. They want that money, and I think that the longevity is a big thing here. Dom, do you feel that the move with the Division correlates, right with them not doing an Assassin's Creed game this year? You think those two are one and the same?
Yeah, absolutely. But more than that, I think Watch Dogs 2 is going to take definitely take the place of their Assassin's Creed, right? So I think we're all assuming at E3 Watch Dogs 2 will be announced, and hopefully, it seems ideal that they're going to release that in the fall.
But will it sell though?
Yeah, it's tough. So I completely skipped the first Watch Dogs, but
everyone did.
Right. From what I've heard, though, given the few improvements, it has potential to be really great too. So I'm sure that if they market it the right way and push it as hard as I expect them to, it should do well in the fall. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming out in the fall too, though. So we'll see.
Jordan, you have any comments about this?
Yeah, I think it does seem obvious that they're doing Watch Dogs this fall, and we'll see how that goes. But as far as the Division, I think, a lot of people obviously are, even us, are comparing this to Destiny, and I get that. They're very similar games. But Destiny may end up hurting Watch Dogs, because I think a lot of people could say, well, they're very similar games, and, the beta to me seemed pretty empty.
You mean the Division, right? You said Watch Dogs, but I believe you meant the Division?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, comparing Watch Dogs and the Division, the beta for Division seemed a little bit empty to me, like what you were talking about with the shell buildings and all that you couldn't go into. And I do think people are going to kind of sit back and wait and see if the Division has a substantial amount of content. If not, I think they might just say, well, why don't I just wait for the Division Taken King 2.0,
Yeah.
Like, why don't I just wait until they actually make this a full game? Because I played Destiny for about 15 to 20 hours, Destiny when it first came out. And it was great for about 10 or 15 hours, and then it was just boring as crap, because you're playing the same, 4 or 5 missions on the same 2 or 3 planets, or you just do the Crucible. And if that's how the division is, I think that could really hurt it. So
I think
we'll have to see what kind of content they have.
Yeah, especially Bungie is known for Halo, and your concerns with the later Halo games and their stories is irrelevant with this. The early Halo games were great story-driven games. There was the shooting mechanics, but they were great stories. And it's sad to see a company like Bungie, who you expect them to have a solid story when they come out with Destiny, and they build all this lore, but there's nothing there. They totally got Activisioned, Totally got Activision.
Yeah, it was very bizarre. Yeah, they almost totally omitted the story in that game. Yeah, that was a letdown for sure.
Yeah. So, time will only tell whether or not the division's successful, but let's hop into the second topic.
All right, so my topic is the Hitman beta for PS4 that comes out today, March 4th, for PS Plus members. And this beta is going to be running today, March 4th, until March 6th. It is about 4.5 gigabytes on your PS4 if you want to download it.
Wow.
And it is 2 missions. It's apparently the same beta that pre-order bonuses people got earlier in February.
Okay.
And so kind of just give my impressions and then see what you guys are feeling about on Hitman coming out on March 11th. So, my impressions are, it was a little bit weak. Like I said, just 2 missions, and, of course you can go back in and there's, challenges for those missions once you beat them to where, assassinate this guy this way, or distract this guard this way, and those are cool and all, but...
quote-unquote replayability, right?
Right, exactly. It's definitely a demo. I wouldn't call it a beta, because a beta kind of makes me feel like you're actually putting me into the game. This is really a prologue.
Yeah.
And it looks like from what I've been able to find online that this is actually going to be the prologue in the main game. So
is the
it's
prologue
all right.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is the prologue releasing with the first part, or is the prologue the first part?
Yes. No, it's with the first part.
Okay.
So this is really just a tutorial, the first mission, and then the second mission is just kind of a fun thing to get you going. They're really both just tutorials to get you used to the game. Obviously a lot of people are going to compare this to Metal Gear Solid 5 when it comes out, because they're both big open world stealth games or sandbox stealth games that came out around the same time. It's not nearly as smooth as Metal Gear Solid was. Metal Gear Solid is one of the best feeling third-person action games I've ever played.
Yeah.
It's just so silky smooth, from shooting to crouching and getting down on the ground and sliding back and forth in between those, jumping on your horse, using your companions. It's just so smooth on a gameplay level, and Hitman was not that way. It had a decent control scheme, and it worked, fine. Not a lot of frame rate issues or anything, but it definitely, coming off of MGS5, it felt a little bit below. So, once again, same thing with the Division. With it having this weird content system and all that, I think I'm definitely not going to be doing day one, and I'll just wait and see kind of how it plays out, I guess.
My concern with this is, so the big issue they're having, what people are with Hitman, is that it seems like it wasn't always intended to be episodic, right? Released in parts. It seemed like it was supposed to be its own game, and then it seems like they're trying to meet deadlines and they're going to release it as is, right? To me, it feels like maybe even the first part that they're going to be releasing isn't done yet, because if they release a quote-unquote beta that's just a prologue, I mean, then what's the point of releasing that? You shouldn't release a beta as the tutorial levels, because that doesn't show people the gameplay. That shows you this is how you play the game,
Yeah.
It seems really weird to me. I'm familiar with Hitman. I like the games a lot. It's weird to me that this one's going to be open world, you said, right?
It's kind of it's sandbox.
Okay, it's sandbox.
Not quite open world, yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic for that. To me, I mean, in a sense of episodic, Hitman works because it's about, finishing these missions, killing these people in a certain way, and there is that replayability system of do this a certain way, do this a certain way. But to me, it doesn't seem like a game that, people will remember the second episode's out. It's not one of those games that's going to hit you where this is a story. You know, Hitman isn't known necessarily for its story. It's known for the game mechanics and the game itself. You know, Life is Strange and the Telltale games, they're known for the story. The gameplay isn't really great, as a lot of people know, but people are like, oh, that ended on a cliffhanger. Oh, I wanted to see where this goes. So they make sure to know when the second episode comes out. For this, I think a lot, I don't know how the sales are going to do, because I think a lot of people, it's going to be in the back of their mind. It's not going to be in the back of their mind, rather, that this game is episodic, you know? And I think it's really going to hurt the game. It's weird to me. All over, it's super weird, you know?
Another point I wanted to make real quick was just that during the cutscenes in between missions, it's loading. It has a loading bar underneath your cutscene, and there was a lot of stuttering. There was a lot of like slow down when it was trying to load up, and the cutscene where the audio would get choppy and it would get really framey visually. So, you know, if this was a beta last fall and this game was coming out right now, that would be different. But the game's a week away from being out, and the cutscenes are all choppy, audio and visual wise. So that is a concern, you know. I mean,
you figure they'd want to polish that, right?
Exactly. This close to release, I think it should be in a release state, you know, ready to go.
Even if they made that beta, though, like 2 months back, wherever, you know, a month back, because those things get shipped out and they got to make sure that everything's working right. Even if it was that long ago, you figure it had already been delayed, right, since last December? Or when was it? Yeah. So you figure they would have made sure that this was polished, especially if there wasn't a lot of content there, right? You said it was a prologue. Like, it's just weird to me. You know, I don't know if this game's going to succeed at all. I think it's going to be, you know, a foregone thought to people, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of hanging in the ether. I do think they botched it, the way they delayed it right before it was supposed to come out. And then, you know, kind of like, it's been so confusing the way that they've talked about these seasons that they're going to do as big episode chunks. And then, you know, people talk about graphical downgrades all the time, but since we first saw this game, it does not look nearly as good. A lot of jagged edges, and it's just, there's way better looking games. Metal Gear Solid 5, for example, looks way better than this game.
Yeah.
So,
Dom, you have any familiarity with Hitman, or any thoughts on this?
So actually, I mean, I've never even touched any of the Hitman games, so I guess I'm a Hitman virgin, if you will.
Don't pop your cherry with this game, apparently. So
yeah, apparently. So yeah, I mean, it hasn't exactly been on my radar, but I found it interesting. Yeah, them splitting this up into episodes seems really out of place. And yeah, if I had to guess, I would agree that it's purely just to meet release dates, right? Well, maybe we can get the first third out, etc. But yeah, I mean, I can't see that being a good strategy as far as, like, you know, the quality of the game goes. But yeah, it sounds like they could see some trouble with it, but we'll see.
So who's publishing this game, Jordan? Do you know?
Square Enix, and it is IO Interactive who's developing.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not like Hitman Part 13, Deus Ex, something, you know?
Episode Dust Guy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we all really have concerns about this game, whether or not it's going to be good. The beta really concerns me, like you said. Hopefully the story is good, you know?
Yeah, it's shaky right now. We're going to wait and see. Probably, if I had to make a choice right now, I'm thinking I'm waiting for a sale.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of story, Dom, what's your topic?
So, if anyone else saw this recently, John Boyega, who plays Finn in Star Wars Episode 7, and he's been known to be a fan of video games. I think he said in an interview previously he loved the Force Unleashed games, and he was really excited for Battlefront. So just recently he tweeted at EA Star Wars, and I'm quoting, "Will fans get a full-on offline story mode? It's a more enjoyable way to learn the controls." To which EA Star Wars replies, "Have you had a chance to try the missions?" Which, if anyone who's played Battlefront knows that's, I mean, the missions they're there, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
thing.
That's about all they have going for them. Yep, they are there. They can be played offline, technically. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to the mission. So in response to that, Boyega actually said, yeah, I thought it was great, but definitely leaves you wanting to engage within a narrative, um, which is very interesting. So essentially, that's Boyega asking, when are we going to see a story mode in Battlefront? Which, I mean, I don't see that happening, but I think I share with Boyega and many others that yeah, a story mode in Battlefront would have been absolutely phenomenal. That game is just so beautifully and so so beautifully made and so well optimized. It's a shame that it was kind of short on content, and that it's going to be limited to just multiplayer. But um, so I guess that kind of brings up the question of what do you guys think about Battlefront coming out with just a multiplayer mode, and also a multiplayer mode that's kind of light even. So as far as the content it starts with.
For me, I got to play enough of Star Wars Battlefront to make a decision whether or not I was going to buy it, and I decided not to. And that was thanks to EA Access. I'm a subscriber to that. You pay $5 a month, and you get access to, a bunch of EA titles, and you get to play EA titles for up to 10 hours, right? So it was like 10 hours. That's more than enough time to figure if I want this for the long haul. I didn't. I play multiplayer games, but I want there to be something there. Not necessarily that there needs to be a story mode. For instance, I love Titanfall. I would have loved a single player campaign, and hearing that the second game is going to have that future civil war in space, awesome. But for Star Wars, here's the thing: Amy Hennig, who left Naughty Dog, is working on the Star Wars game, right? And if she has any kind of say, that game's going to have a tremendous story, right?
Yep.
Do you think that maybe we didn't need a story in Battlefront because we got the movie, right? We wanted something just to salivate ourselves with Star Wars. So maybe what EA was thinking is, instead of trying to push our team too thin and try to make this game more than it needs to be, we'll give them a multiplayer experience for people who love Star Wars, right? It's really enriching. But for the people who want more, who want a story, well, we have that game coming. And I wish if they were just a little bit more clear about their messaging, like, we have the story game you want, just wait, it's almost here. And I think we'll hear more about that at E3. They have to say something about that game, right? I think if they were just clear in their messaging of, like, we know you guys want a story game, we are working on that. Just please give us some time. And if people knew that there was a story coming out, maybe people would still want a story in Battlefront, but what would the story be about? They could make a clone of Force Awakens and just put that in a video game, but I personally don't want that. That's what the movie's there for. Personally, if I'm going to play a game that's based solely on the product, that's what Lego does, right? That's what Lego does. They make games that are based on the movie specifically. They could do a side story and stuff like that, but once again, I think that's what Amy Hennig's working on. I think they're making something that's going to be really great. I have no doubt Naughty Dog has a track list. She has a track list for making great games. So that's my opinion on it. I think it's fine with it not having a story mode. Not every game needs a story mode. If there's something else in play, this being the Amy Hennig game, So
yeah. I'm unbelievably hyped for that. I mean, I know absolutely nothing about it except she's working on it and that it's coming too. Has there been any details released about that, or do we know even kind of what?
No.
There's nothing.
We don't know anything.
Oh man.
Nothing.
So yeah, I'd say I kind of disagree with you, Jared. I think that I'm super excited for Amy Hennig's game, and yes, that is going to be story driven and all that, I believe. But
we hope.
Sure. I don't think that game's existence, or the fact that it's going to probably be written by Amy Hennig, negates Battlefront having a story.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think Battlefront can have its own story, and I think, they just put out a book last fall called Battlefront Twilight Company, which I haven't read.
From what I heard, those books aren't necessarily great, but that's besides the point.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it does show that, you could write a story about a squadron in Battlefront, and you could make it good. I definitely think there could be cool Battlefront stories told.
Yeah.
And I think that they could give some real context to these battles that you're fighting in. To me, Battlefront is kind of lame. Not the concept of Battlefront. I love the old games, and I love Star Wars, but this game itself is a little bit lame. It's a little bit just eye candy.
It's like product pushing, I think. It's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah. Same with the Disney Infinity 3.0 playset. It's like, this is the big kid version of Disney Infinity 3.0,
So
Yeah.
Battlefront is definitely taking advantage of people's love for Star Wars, right? I mean, without a doubt,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm one of those people, and I absolutely bought it without a shred of regret. I mean, I knew for $60, this isn't a good value, but man, it looks so good, and I love Star Wars so much that I couldn't not. So yeah, I unapologetically said screw it. I mean, I guess in a way, yeah, they're pulling one on me, but I'm okay with it, I guess.
Yeah.
See, and that's exactly how I felt, and I was feeling just like you, and I was planning on getting the game, but as soon as that $50 price point dropped for the season pass, it was clear to me that they were really gouging.
Oh yeah, they're
people.
milking it.
Yeah.
Because exactly, you're essentially buying 2 games there, and when the base game itself is so content lacking, well, then you essentially have to buy the season pass if you want the full experience.
So you're spending $120 or $110 on something that you should have had with your $60 purchase. I think that's a problem too.
Yeah, it's $120. That's 2 games.
Yeah, I think that's a problem too with people wanting a single player is because the multiplayer doesn't feel that enriching. I think if the multiplayer was actually an enriching experience and it was deep and there was a lot of content there, people wouldn't have an issue. Well, they probably would have an issue with it not having a single player, but it wouldn't be as much of an issue. It feels as if, okay, they didn't do a single player and they didn't fully do the multiplayer. So what exactly did they do?
Yeah.
They wanted you to buy Star Wars, Star Wars,
Yeah. I think, honestly, if it was just the game that it is, plus you have a decent 8 to 10 hour single player story that's fun and engaging,
Yeah.
I think I probably would have bought the game at $60. Now I'm going to wait, until the deluxe package with all the actual content is super cheap, and then I'll play it and dink around with it for 10 or 15 hours, whatever.
Here's the thing, Dom. I don't blame you for doing that. I mean, it's it's something you really love, right? And for me, I'm like, well, Star Wars isn't a huge thing to me. I enjoy Star Wars. I like it a lot, but my passion isn't to that point. But then I put it in retrospect of something I'm super passionate about, Lord of the Rings. If this would have happened with Lord of the Rings, if they did like a multiplayer game, I would have definitely bought it because I would have gotten pulled in, if it was a cash grab. So you kind of have to put this into perspective of something you are that passionate about and be like, well, you can't blame everybody because if I was in their situation, would I have done the same thing? And for me personally, I would have. So I would have been just as much guilty as you are, So I think I agree with you, Jordan, that, yeah, Amy Hennig's game doesn't make it, any less important for Battlefront to be different than what it is.
Right.
But for somebody who is super into Star Wars, at least even though they got you this time, make sure you do your research on that game. Whether Amy Hennig's working on it or not, make sure it's something you want to purchase, not just because it has Star Wars on it.
Sure.
Don't let them hit you twice. But in the same essence, don't be so against it because of Battlefront that you don't see it for what it is. It's kind of playing that and figuring out what exactly it is. Don't kind of, bash that game for what happened with Battlefront because they are completely 2 different entities, even though they're both under EA's blanket.
So really quick side note on this too. I don't know if you guys saw this. So they finally, a few weeks back, they outlined some of the DLC going forward, but then more recently, and I'm reading this from IGN, they kind of detailed exactly what the first DLC is going to be, and it's going to include 2 new hero characters. So just really quick, I'm gonna name each of the characters and see if either of you guys know who they are in the Star Wars universe.
Okay. I probably won't, but
the
let's
first
see.
is Celestin Rebel Neon Numbi. I don't know how you say it.
No idea.
Exactly.
No clue.
Yes, I do know who that is. He is the pilot that helps out Lando in Return of the Jedi in the Millennium Falcon over the Battle of Endor.
All right. The second I was familiar with, but some people might not be is the Rhodian bounty hunter Greedo.
Yeah, Greedo. Yeah, he's the one who shot first, right?
Yeah, he definitely.
I know that.
Didn't shoot first.
Yeah.
But
okay, that's interesting. That doesn't make me want to buy the game anymore because it's whatever. But that is interesting. Those are some Greedo makes sense because for the super Star Wars guys, it's like, oh, it's Greedo. But the other one is like, it has to be a deep dive, right? It's like, oh, you definitely are a Star Wars fan if you know who the hell this is.
So I think,
yeah, but see, I know who that guy is, and it's still not making me want to buy it.
Exactly.
I was so expecting Chewbacca or Yoda or something.
That's weird. How is Chewbacca not in it?
That's
I want to use that big old bow that he has and just annihilate things,
the Celestin is a cool tip of the cap, but really, like, who wants to play as that weird flap face monster?
You know what I think it is, though? I think it's that at this point, the only people who are really playing Battlefront are the people who already bit, and they're super into it, and they're like, well, I already did it, and then they see this thing, and they're like, so I'm already invested, and they gave me this weird nod. Cool,
Yeah. The bandwagon people probably already jumped back off. They probably had their fun times, One thing about this, going back a ways, though, on the John Boyega tweet, when I first saw that, I was like, hey, man, where were you, 6 or 8 months ago when all of us gamers were talking about this?
Yeah.
You could have actually maybe, I don't think they would have rushed and thrown something in there, but you could have at least got them thinking in time to go, you know what, we're going to throw it in the season pass, and it's only going to be 4 hours, but whatever.
But here's the thing, though, is the gamers are so fickle, right? And they're quick to get angry at things. Maybe he felt like, I want people to enjoy me and my portrayal of this character in Star Wars, and he didn't want to step on too many toes. The dude's relatively unknown, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think he didn't want to do something and then somehow it backfired, because things can backfire easily on social media. We've seen that, especially with the gaming industry. And yeah, he should have voiced his opinion, but then again, it's like, this dude's new. He wants to be loved by the Star Wars community, and I think he didn't want to count his chickens before they were hatched. He wanted to, get involved in the community the movie way, and then start voicing his opinions. Yeah, it sucks he didn't voice them sooner, but his words earlier wouldn't have meant anything, right? Because no one knew who he was.
The way you're describing this makes him sound like he's like a Sith Lord in the background, just pulling the puppet strings, like, wait until I get them on my side with the movie.
Yeah. Well, okay, that wraps up our first podcast, guys. Thank you guys for listening to the Controlled Interest Gamescast. Make sure to tune in, follow us on Twitter. That's where you're going to see most of our updates, if not all of our updates regarding our YouTube videos, our publishing of all of our content, and, just to keep in touch with us as our content gets put up on the internet. I'm Jared. You can see me at Twitter at Jared_. Jordan, you can see him at Twitter at Mellowmodus, MELLOWMODUS. And Dom, you can find him at Twitter at Dom9494. And our Twitter for Controlled Interests is at CTRLINT. That's at CTRLINT. Thank you guys for listening. We enjoy every listen we get. Share it with your friends if you want to, because we want to make this something that's really awesome. And for the first episode, I definitely want to give a shout out to the Kind of Funny guys. They brought us together to make this podcast a reality, and we really, are fortunate enough to have that inspiration from them. So definitely a shout out to the Kind of Funny guys. Any closing thoughts, Jordan, Dom?
Hashtag smash the dunst.
Dom?
That's a Kind of Funny Let's Play throwback.
Greedo shot first.
Okay.
There you go.
See you guys in episode 2 next week. Thank you guys for listening. Catch you next time. Bye.